Brexit import checks, something that, bear in mind, a long time ago should have been in place. Something that, if we were going to leave, the single market and customs union, you'd have thought that a pro-Brexit government would have, actually prepared for this eventuality, would have made sure that we have enough staff, that the Department for International Trade could actually, advise businesses rather than having to wait for almost a non-existent phone call and weeks for a response for questions to about emails about customs information that they need, right now, not in like 2 weeks time or 3 weeks time or even 4 weeks time, now. And we've now heard from the government that, or at least we know, January the 31st, so we are what, 2 weeks away from this happening. I will say this now. I will not believe that these checks are going to be in place until the very morning of the January the 31st. Why? Because remember, we have meant to have been put in place these checks 6 times now, and 6 times, sometimes even at the 11th hour, our government has decided to go, actually, no thanks, we're not going to do that. So I do not believe for one moment, that these checks are going to come in, unless it is I wake up on the morning on Wednesday of the 31st, and I look at the news and, oh, there we are, the checks are now in place. Yep, the government's actually done them. But of course, will the government actually go through with them? We know right now, at the very moment, even though it hasn't been in the news for quite a while, there are still queues down at Dover. The second you put these checks in, those queues get even longer. So this is honestly going to be a potential recipe for disaster, going to have a massive increase and ultimately will contribute to inflation, is going to sort of raise the cost of food, all kinds of things this is going to be responsible for. And yet, again, we warned about this, what the consequence would be if we were to leave the single market and customs union. And I'd like to remind people that, once again, the Leave campaign's position on the single market and customs union was that we were not leaving. So, as far as I'm concerned, any future government that wants to take us back into the customs market and single market and customs union can do that, does not need a referendum to do so, and is only following the will of the people. And if anyone complains, well, just show the clip of Daniel Hannan where someone said, oh no, but a vote for leave does mean leaving the single market and customs union, because some of us had been paying attention to what the Brexiteers had been saying. But of course, this is where they repeat their infamous line from one Daniel Hannan: oh, we're not going to leave the single market and customs union. Only a fool would leave the single market and customs union. So today, rather than have a look from the British point of view of this, we are going to have a look at what Irish businesses think, what Ireland thinks about this, because this is, once again, a different point of view that you don't tend to really hear. And I do like going for the different points of view, especially from Ireland, because ultimately they are going to have problems with this as well, having to deal with this as well. But this is going to mean now that Ireland just goes, well, we're not going to do as much business with the UK as we used to. So, anyway, before we do go getting onto this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, down below there are links to my Patreon page, the One Off Nation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. There is, of course, the One Off Nation link called the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there's the Pony Club as well down below too. So let's go over to this. This comes from RT. with the title of New Brexit Related Import Controls in Force from the End of January. And as I have said before, I do not believe, I will not believe that these are going to come in force until they are in force, because our government has literally, right at the last minute, decided, actually, no, we're not going to do that because we ain't ready for these checks to be in place. But anyway, let's see what they've got to say about this. So, Irish businesses that are involved in exporting goods to or through the UK have been urged to now ensure that they are fully prepared for the Brexit-related import controls that are being introduced from January the 31st. Under these changes, the affected firms will now be required to pre-lodge customs declarations ahead of shipping products to Great Britain, meaning that now it's a greater cost to businesses to ship goods to the UK. And we have seen what that has been for British businesses, basically just turning around and going, it ain't worth it anymore. This extra cost, this extra paperwork, this extra time, it ain't worth it anymore. So ultimately, you are going to see a big reduction from imports, just as we have seen a big reduction in exports because of Brexit. So agri-food exporters will also have to be pre-notified to the UK authorities. In some cases, well, they will have to be accompanied by the export health certificate, which is again going to cost a lot of extra money for these products. And of course, that's going to be cast on to the end consumer. So guess what? Food prices are going to go up. Anyway, the additional documentation will come on the top of the formalities that are now already in place for goods that are being exported to the EU. It is understood that the Irish government officials are confident that awareness and preparation amongst the medium to large Irish firms is already good to go ahead of these introduction of the new requirements. But there is still less confidence that the smaller traders will have the resources and knowledge to be fully ready. And this is what I've said as well. I would say that maybe, again, maybe the Irish government helps, or actually helps, businesses that want to export, not like ours who, desperately try to ring the Department for Transport, the Department for Trade, for international trade, who say, "Oh yes, we're helping businesses to trade internationally." Doesn't seem like it if you phone them up or you send them an email. So maybe medium businesses in Ireland do actually have that knowledge because the government is actually prepared, actually helping them. But in the UK, the story is very similar. It's the medium and small businesses that just don't have that expertise because they can't afford it. The single market acted as almost an extension of the UK market, which allowed a lot of small businesses to become medium businesses and medium businesses to become large businesses and make a whole heap of money from having that market and being in the single market and customs union. Now that is gone. And we have seen multiple times on this channel 30 to 40% of their businesses gone. Now, this is going to get a lot of European exports to go, it's not worth it. I've got the rest of the single market I can trade into, but I have to spend all this extra time, cost, and paperwork to send goods to the UK. What's the point? So, it is expected to be that shipments that do not have the required declaration submitted at least 24 hours or more in advance will not be allowed to board ferries on from the morning of January the 31st. So there's also said now that our computer system, the chief system, is not compatible with the European one, meaning that there is now a new system, meaning more time, more expense that exporters now have to use when everyone in the European Union uses the same system, but we use a completely different system. Again, why? Just if you are an exporter and you are exporting to the UK, the second you start to experience these things, your immediate reaction is, why bother? I can export more goods into the EU to these markets. It's just It's just so depressing. It's and they were warned time after time after time, and they have no answer. They've had no answer to these things except Jacob Rees-Mogg's cyberpunk border solution, which again doesn't exist, has never been proven to exist, and can't even point to any examples of one existing. So, the physical checks at the border posts of goods entering Great Britain from the Republic of Ireland will not begin until the 31st of October at the earliest, although that date has not been confirmed. So, once again, you have now two dates that are going to be big points to see what will happen this year. Will they be implementing these the paperwork checks from the 31st of January? They might do. I find it highly suspicious that they have separated out the physical checks to start in October of this year. That's very suspect, which also tells me maybe it's not going to kick in from January the 31st, because remember, 6 times. Are we going to have a seventh time? Are we going for lucky number 7? I think we might. But over a third of Irish exports do end up in the UK, which is still the biggest single destination for Irish food, drink, and horticulture exports. 47% of Irish beef exports with an estimated value of 1.3 billion euros go to there. For example, while dairy exports to the UK were valued at 1.1 billion back in 2023. The UK continues to be an important market for Irish exports, so the smooth transition to these new UK requirements will be very important to us, said the Taoiseach and Minister for the Foreign Affairs and Defence, Michael Martin. I'm encouraging all Irish companies to speak to everyone in their supply chain to make sure that they are ready for the new UK processing starting on the 31st, he said. These import controls were, of course, meant to be introduced a number of occasions over recent years. Yeah, 6 times, and sometimes right at the very last minute. So I have no confidence, like I said, until we actually get to the date and the government has said, yes, they are running from today. I am not buying it, because remember the last time they have done this sometimes with like 24, 48 hours to go. The last time we had a week to go. So next Wednesday on the 24th, there might be an announcement saying, oh yeah, we're kicking down these checks down the road another year. Anyway, but they were repeatedly delayed because the UK's agencies were not ready. And there's still a big question whether the UK's agencies are ready. Because once again, they have not been fully funded, they have not been fully staffed, and they cannot train the staff fast enough. We have had, at this point, 4 years being out of the EU officially. Longer, of course, if you go from triggering Article 16 and those. So we should have been prepared a long time ago, but because, again, the Brexiteers just were not prepared, they did not care about the finer points of detail of what they were really asking to do, which, again, should make you question pretty much everything else that they have said throughout the years of them being in government, even before Brexit. Yeah, highly suspicious. So the rules were finally published in August of last year, and the expectation is now that the latest deadline for implementation of the 31st of January will be adhered to. Yeah, will be adhered to. Methinks maybe not, considering it's been 6 times. It would not shock me to go for a 7th time. Irish government officials have been heavily engaged with the Irish exporters, logistic providers, ferry operators, and others in recent months, and have run communication and education campaigns. Certainly more than our government has done in that. Anyway, sources have said that there is now strong evidence that those who need to engaging are in the preparatory work ahead of the 31st of January. The Minister for Agriculture, Claire McDonald, said that all businesses in agri-food that chain that support to Great Britain should engage with their UK customers, their locally survivally commitment authority, teams, and logistic providers to confirm the necessary processes are now in place. These requirements do not apply to goods that are moving from Northern Ireland from Ireland to Northern Ireland. while the qualifying goods of or originating in Northern Ireland will continue to have unfettered access across to Great Britain. These rules, of course, do not apply for both goods transported directly from Ireland to Great Britain or indirectly from Northern Ireland to Great Britain. Under the new system, exports of live animals from Ireland will have to be pre-notified by the British-based importer to the UK's food and feed to the SPS import system, along with the animal products and, of course, high, medium risk plant product categories as well. Full custom controls will also be introduced, which means importer in Great Britain's or the agencies will have to be registered with a load for the UK's customs declaration system. Hauliers will need to indeed to import declaration reference numbers to generate the goods movements restrum system. The UK Gov's vehicle management system will also have to be used. Can you just see how many systems? There is like 4 different systems you have to be registered with. Go through. It is not all one system. It is just time and time again, all these different multiple systems that exporters, or in this case, importers, are gonna have to go through. And you have to ask the question of if we have had businesses in the UK that have just gone, it's too complex, what's the point? Just stopped exporting or found it even harder now to engage with customers on the continent for these extra costs that they now have to pay. What do you think is going to happen to many of these exporters or these importers to the UK? They're just going to say, "What's the point?" It's just you are going to say, just as we've seen a drop off in exports, a drop off of imports as well. That is going to have huge, huge implications. So all I can say is roll on the UK, roll on Labour getting in, where we will actually have, alignment deals, follow various things. Because I think that is what is going to end up happening. And as we've always said, there will just come a point where, Starmer will just turn around and just go, hey, look, guys, this is Brexit. This is as best as it is going to ever be. It is damaging our economy fundamentally. It is stymieing our growth, and we are losing so much in GDP, in people, investing in the UK. Are you sure you really want to continue with this? Because that's the only logical conclusion. You've got to let just show people just how bad Brexit has been, and that we've know the polls, we've seen them with people rejecting more and more Brexit, that it was a bad idea. So as we've always said, next Parliament, a lot of these crazy Brexiteers aren't going to be in there. So we're going to actually be able to have proper adult conversations about Brexit. So, like I say, it will be good. But anyway, we're not going to continue with that anymore because I think you get the point. Irish businesses and the government are actually prepared, but as we've said before, you've got to go through all those different import things, all those different stuff. If you're an exporter, what's the point? You've got to go through all this extra time cost to do all this paperwork. You've got the rest of the EU you could trade into and customers there. It's a massive market compared to the UK one. There is going to be a drop off in exports, just as again, there is going to be a drop off of imports, just as we have seen a drop off of exports, and that will hurt our economy massively, massively so. Yeah, just another point, just to show how bad Brexit is. But as always, thank you very much, of course, for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.